This is Daybreak. Thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. This morning with me in the studio on my far right is Peter Orero. He is the lawmaker representing Kibra constituency as well as a member of the Education Committee. Good morning.
Good morning, Kerry. How are you?
Lovely having you here on the broadcast.
A pleasure too.
Thank you for making time. Beatrice Elachi is the MP representing Dagoretti North constituency. Good morning.
Morning.
Lovely having you here on the broadcast.
Thank you.
And thank you for making time.
Yes,
on my immediate right is Silas Obuhatsa. He is the chairperson, the National Parents Association, a key stakeholder, which equally raised fundamental questions on the safety of learners across the country. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's lovely having you here on the broadcast.
Thank you.
And thank you all for making time. Lots to think about here and lots to chew here on the broadcast this morning as we take stock of what happened at the Hillside Endarasha Academy in Kieni West, in Kieni constituency, the county of Nyeri, and the painful realization of safety concerns that were raised by stakeholders, including parents. And in the course of this broadcast, our reporter Seth Olale will be giving us an update from the Naromoru Level 4 hospital, where the DNA sequencing will be starting today, and the exercise that will be undertaken by the chief government pathologist and as well as stakeholders who are part of the multi-agency team with regards to the many questions that remain unanswered. First, coming to you, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, it's painful realization, is it, that still there are more than 40 learners who cannot be accounted for following that fire tragedy?
First, let me just say that Friday was a dark Friday, a very heartbreaking Friday, a very sad Friday. Nobody had words to what to say, because first you run in your mind and you're asking yourselves. But I want to send condolences to parents, which I know, we are just saying it, my dear parents, but I know there's a lot that these parents need, a lot of counseling, a lot. It's not an easy thing, what they are going through. But then after that, then we come back to the questions. You see, in Nairobi, when Nairobi girls went into this, at one point when I went there, it's you are hit by a sort of emotion. You wonder what to say. Mm-hmm. You look at the principal, you wonder, and I'm imagining the head teacher now. But then we ask ourselves, we go back to the biggest challenge we face as a country. Is we have refused completely as leaders. When we say something, after 1 month, when everything goes down, we move on and nobody does quality assurance check. Nobody follows up the guidelines that were given. Mm-hmm. And we end up now in this. I remember at that time, we had very rough guidelines. We were saying, you cannot be 70 in a dorm. Mm-hmm. That we have to now split, that you must open doors of exit, that you must have a fire extinguisher. You know, all these things. In my head, I was asking myself, is there any in these schools anymore? Or we just decided and we closed the chapter after things calmed down, the Kenyan style? And now we are here again, and we are asking ourselves, so if 40 are not there, 18 are gone, you know, we have to stop, all of us. In fact, if it was in any other country, abroad, we will not be talking any other thing. No, it cannot be business as usual. Mm-hmm. No, we should be at the ground, getting to understand what really happened. And I'm hoping all the leaders of Central have arrived here to understand what just happened to these young babies. And then now we go to the next question, whether this is going to teach us that going forward, no primary school, should be boarding. No primary school should be boarding. Let parents take care of their children in primary school as they move to high school. In high school, these are grown. You see, these young babies, I'll call them babies. these children were asleep.
Mm-hmm.
It means they were choked. That's why they were unable to wake up and run, because they were choked by the smoke, and because they are babies, their respiratories are very fragile. And so it's not easy for them. That's why many went into this. But then I ask myself, it's a story dome, if I'm not wrong, or it was permanent. But inside they had done partitions.
Yeah, partitioning, yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And do they have a matron? Or the matron stays with the girls, and who stays with the boys? Because boys are more versatile. You need to have them very close to you. Girls, you know, they are very different. They can really take care of themselves. Boys need a lot of support nowadays. Even when they're in campus,
yeah.
When you put them with their peers who are the girls, you realize boys are sort of very conservative nowadays, and they have kept everything in themselves. Mm-hmm. And so there are many things. So the question will be, was it power? What was this? Okay,
we'll talk about the cause, because that is subject to the investigation process that the DCI is undertaking, but we'll be having a graphical representation of how the dormitory looks like, mm-hmm. Because our reporter Gatete Njoroge had managed to talk to the first student who raised the alarm. And who had given a graphical description of how the dormitory looked like, the segmentation in terms of how many beds were on the right, the left, the walkway, and the fire exit points, and the other questions. We'll be getting to that, and Ibrahim will be sorting us with that graphic.
Just to say this,
that story, yes,
this was a school,
yes,
that was doing now the best.
Okay.
And it's somewhere where I'm wondering, are the neighbors so far from this school?
They are not, given that I was present for the past 2 days, and with regards to its proximity to the neighborhood, sandwiched between a village which is in Kieni West constituency, though mountainous and with dipping temperatures at times, given the area and its geographical situation. Silas, this has raised many fundamental questions, and where responsibility does lie, we'll be taking a look at the safety measures that should be standardized across learning institutions. But what is the view from the National Parents Association? Are you as concerned as those you represent in that village, who still are asking the many questions of where the unaccounted for children or learners are?
Thank you. First of all, let me take this time to send condolences to the parents who lost their children. And also, I say, I wish quick recovery to those whose children are still admitted. And more so, I say this, that we are praying for the children that are missing to be found. Because it's very strange that it's now about 2 days since this incident happened, and we still have children missing. Parents don't know where the children are, and these are primary school children. Mm-hmm. As Mheshimiwa has said here, these are young children. You know, just imagine at home, when a child goes to church and fails to come back on time, how you get worried. Now, 3 days, 2 days, the child is still missing. We want to say this. Looking at what is happening now, I'm a parent, and I represent parents in this country. It's painful. It's a painful experience. One, let me reflect back. I don't know whether you were born. Maybe Madam Elachi was born and my brother here. Mm-hmm. There was an incident in Machakos school called Changuli School. Changuli, you remember this very well. Where 60 students burned. Yeah. They perished. That experience should have taught the Kenyan government that schools require a lot of protection, a lot of care, and a lot of inspection.
Yes.
During my days, there was inspection. I would see inspectors coming to school every day, even going to class and inspecting teachers, wanting to know whether they have lesson plans or not. But of late, I think that kind of inspection is no longer there. Mm-hmm. There's reluctance in this. Two, we are looking at the safety measures in schools. During Kibaki's time, there was a task force that was formed. Went around schools and checked and gave recommendations that a school should have doors that are opening outside, wide enough. Mm-hmm. A number of doors, not a door, doors. A dorm should have about 6 or 7 doors that are very wide. And they should show directions. The students should be trained on how to escape if there's danger. The windows should not have grills. Okay? So that if this, a disaster like this one, the students can jump out and escape. And then, these measures, the question is, does it mean that when President Kibaki went, they also went? Or they are still there? This question is there.
And yesterday in the in that safety standards that you have listed, many of the doors were
opening
inwards,
inside,
and then the windows were reinforced with steel.
Yes.
And then this certainly was very visible to the eye.
Yes.
And how did it, in your view, then escape the attention of officials? Because every county and sub-county at that level has education officials who ought to be establishing that, because this was a disaster in waiting. And it isn't an issue that is confined with the hillside Endarasha Academy, but also the report by the Auditor General established that is the tendency and it's the norm across many schools across the country.
Yeah. I'm not talking about Endarasha only. I'm talking about across all schools in the country. Go to schools and see. And one thing I want to say is that some schools are so strict that parents cannot access even the classrooms where the children learn from. And yet the parents own schools. And we've been saying as part of the session, parents own schools, they must be given the freedom. They must walk in schools, they must go to dormitories, they must go to the dining hall. You saw what happened in Mukumu the other day.
Yeah.
Parents were not allowed to access even the dining hall. And even during the solution coming up with the process, parents again were what? Were tear gassed. Are you seeing this? So where are the parents left? We are saying that National Parents Association has to be strengthened. Is an organization that is anchored well, Madam Elacha and Mheshimiwa here. Parents Association is anchored in the Education Act 2013. But we don't have the freedom to operate as Parents Association under the Ministry of Education. I'm telling you, there are tight rules. And I want Parliament to hear this, that we must be given freedom to operate as Parents Association, to organize school management boards. If the boards of this school, the management boards of this school, were well trained on disaster management, preparedness and prevention in this school, we would not have had that. That is the role of Parents Association. But we are not allowed to do this because there are restrictions. Go to the County Director of Education, you are told, go to the PS and get a letter of authority to come and do this. And yet I'm the national chairman, I have the authority, I'm the Education Act 2013, and have been given the powers of parental empowerment and engagement. I don't access schools. My PA chairs cannot access schools and hold meetings. County directors are saying, we have no authority from the PS Ministry of Education for Parents Association to organize and train parents. I have been insisting that parents lack communication in their skills. They ought to be trained on communication skills. Parents lack training on disaster management, preparedness and waiting. There are so many disasters. Go to a school, you find in front there where the parents' access is very clean. Go behind the toilet, there is a hole. Even when you're on the road, you see the girls in the toilets from the fence outside the wall, the school fence. Because parents don't go behind it there. We want authority from the Ministry of Education this morning. From the PS, I need authority that I organize Parents Association in the country all the way from national level to school level. That's my work. Because of that authority.
All right.
By restriction by the County Director of Education, they are saying I must produce a letter to show that the PS has allowed me. If I had been allowed, I can assure you I'll have accessed this school and I'll have seen inside. I would have trained those parents. I would have trained the school management boards. I would have trained the teachers. So I have no access, and yet I'm sitting in a government office. What am I doing there? All
right. And Mheshimiwa Orero, coming to you then, the influential Education Committee of the National Assembly, wherein you sit, is, I'm sure, going to be focusing on this, given the scale and of the devastation of what happened at the hillside Endarasha Academy. But are we looking at what could perhaps be a tip of the iceberg?
Thank you. First and foremost, I would really want to pass my sincere condolences, not just to the parents alone, but to everyone else who is involved in this. You can never know the pain that the parents have undergone when they are missing their children. And I am here as also one of those who have been a principal of boarding schools in this country. But as Education Committee, we sent one of our members, Madam Anne Muratha, the women rep of Kiambu, to go and do assessment. She went for the interdenominational prayers so that she could give us the insight of what happens. And as Education Committee, I think we have been talking on our walls, and we are also planning maybe to visit the scene. I think this is just the tip of an iceberg. Having been one of those who manage boarding schools, but I want to say the primary boarding school, we had a task force. I think I was also involved at that time to look at why we have boarding schools in primary. That time, it was my suggestion that people who could be in boarding were at least from class 7 or 8 in primary, because they could take care of themselves at least. But when you get a kid who is in class 2 or 3 in a boarding school, you wonder why that kid should be in a boarding school. Because one, they cannot manage themselves, and those boarding schools do not have the basic requirements to manage these kids. They have the teachers. Those teachers would not be there to manage a class 2, a class 3, and a class 4 kid. When you have a kid who is in class 3, they do not even know what they do in schools. They go to school just to play. When we were in school ourselves, when I was in class 3, I do not even remember what we were doing that time in school.
Okay.
These boarding schools that we have, I will not say with certainty that we don't need boarding schools, but we need to have measures. And these measures, when we were growing up, we used to have inspectors of schools. Those days they were called, like Stima was an inspector of school. But now they are called quality assurance and standards officers. In our country, the quality assurance and standards officers at sub-county level, one, they don't have vehicles, because you will find that a sub-county is spanning 40 kilometers in certain areas. They cannot do quality assurance without the vehicles doing. They do not have manpower. Yeah. You'll find only one person has been deployed as a quality assurance in a sub-county. It means that the government system that we have not laid emphasis on quality assurance. In schools, if we do not have quality assurance and standards officers, then things will go astray. My colleague is saying that the parents have no access to schools. Although this one, I don't know. When I was there are 3 pillars of running a school. You must have parents, you must have teachers, and you must have students. And they contribute immensely to the management of the schools. There are things that are basic in a boarding school. You must have the fire, they are called extinguishers. Extinguishers. Like me, we used to have smoke detectors, that anytime there is a smoke, it rings and everybody knows that there is fire in school. The training of the students and the training of the workers within school, how to operate the fire extinguishers. Yes. When I was there, this is what I did for my staff and for the students, so that every time we had a fire or any element of smoke, people would run and use the fire extinguishers.
But Honorable Orero, then, you have raised a fundamental point there regarding the budgeting question, because you said, for instance, an inspectorate for an entire sub-county, it's huge, considering that there are some sub-counties that are big. For example, Kieni constituency, where that fire tragedy happened, is 52% of the landmass of Nyeri County. But also give another example, say Wajir South constituency, which is in Wajir County. That constituency alone is bigger than Rwanda, the country. Yeah. And what then happens here? Because you need more resources, manpower or personnel. And then the second question, in terms of the fire extinguisher, where the incident happened, these were minors, and I had the privilege to visit that school and also see the dormitory. And not many schools across the country are privileged to even have fire extinguishers. Then again, what happens to the training? How do you train minors? Because we understand if you are to pull the weight of a fire extinguisher, it needs a lot. And here you're dealing with a grade 8 or a grade 9 pupil. So what happens to the training aspect? Are many schools as privileged as some others are? What about the landmass, the personnel, the budget needed, given that we live in a country where we have stratified our society and classified ourselves in the context of education, where some are locked out from these opportunities that you are talking about?
I think in these boarding schools, one of the factors is that before a school is approved to be a boarding school, this basic requirement should be some of the items that a boarding school, before it is approved, must have. Like fire extinguisher is mandatory. That all boarding schools, not even boarding schools, even day schools, we have fires in day schools, they should have fire extinguishers. They are not very, very expensive. But when you go to a school like Nairobi School, the dorm master or house master stays and sleeps with those kids next to their dorms. And the boarding school must have janitors, they must have chaperones within the school. And I am told that, I've read some of their news items, that the janitors were not there, the chaperones were not there, the boarding mistress was boarding master. Maybe he's not sleeping next to these dorms. We must ensure that each dorm must have a house master or a house mistress who stays with these kids next to the dorm. Okay. Because this will ensure that we have people who can manage when we have such inferno or fire inferno. But we have a school where even teachers do not stay within the school. Even the boarding mistress or boarding master has no house within the school. Even the principal himself does not stay within the school. Now, these are some of the basic management structures as a country that we must ensure that all the boarding school, we must have the principal or the head teacher in those institutions. The house masters must be staying within the school compound. If we didn't have these facilities, then these are risks to the schools. And one important thing that private school must have, you realize that the directors of private school who are, in a sense, they manage the school. Some of them are not teachers. They have not sat in a class, and they have not done psychology, they have not done sociology, they have not done philosophy, they have not done management to do in schools. Okay. So how do you manage a school and you are never a teacher? Teachers must be allowed to manage the schools. Okay,
hold it there, Honorable Orero. When we get back from the break, Honorable Elacha, I'll begin with you, and we'll have a graphical representation of how that dormitory looked like in terms of the safety. And this was the account given by the first learner who raised the alarm and spoke with my colleague Gatete Njoroge, and he gave us the graphical description of how it looked like and whether some of the issues that you have highlighted here have been met, all the requirements for that matter. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. When we get back from the break, we'll also hear from my colleague Seth Olale, who is in Nyeri County for the DNA sequencing process, which starts today on Monday, as parents still ask questions about the whereabouts of the more than 40 learners who are still missing and are unaccounted for.